Hi there, everyone. How's everything? Just go ahead and do another schizoid quest slash interview with another schizoid that wants to tell us a little bit about themselves. Well, I don't know if they want to, but they will. And in any case, I have this similar, or I made some changes to the questions, only slight changes to make it more concise, a little more. Burb helped me with that one, and we're going to be asking those questions, getting those answers in order to see what kind of interesting information we can find out about different schizoids as we go through these that might correlate, things that might be different, so on and so forth.
I'm Eman. I'm a cool dude. That's
Yet
about
to be
it.
determined. Yet to be
Yeah.
determined. But that's it. No background, no information about anything. Maybe your what are you diagnosed with here, and anything like that. Some context, maybe
Oh,
for
let's see.
like what kind of person is answering these questions.
I'm in my mid 30s. Schizoid. I also have depression, anxiety. That's about it.
All right, cool. So let's start with that first question. Would you describe yourself as a floating head? Do you prefer concepts over objects? Go.
I I definitely prefer object or concepts over objects.
And could you describe why that is and how that functions for you?
Well, a lot of it is like it pertains to like just really a lot of my interests, like stuff I read about, where the material world isn't really all that there is, or like in my view at least,
Hmm.
there's more to this world than just what you can see and touch.
Okay. I mean, there's plenty of people with interests like that. But what would you say makes your preference to think about or go in those sort of directions more than just a hobby or interest?
Well, for me, it's more of like, hey, this is like a less understood area to everybody's existence, where it's like I see there as being like things to discover there, where it's not relegated to you have to be highly funded and like an institution to get somewhere with it.
Do you would you say that your thoughts go in those sort of places more intuitively, or is it just something you consciously make an effort to learn more about?
It's just something that's always just seemed like it's fun to just get into.
The most vague answers possible. I
Well,
love it.
like I don't have an explanation for
No,
why
you don't need
it
one.
catches my attention. It just does.
It feels natural to do to just be
Yeah.
there. Okay. And when I said floating head, it means like how connected are you to your physical body?
Um, like I have a body just like everybody else.
Would you say you feel close to it, or
Well, it's my body. It's not anybody else's.
all right? Would you describe yourself as a minimalist who performs only the most crucial activities before returning to your thoughts?
Um, yes and no. Like if I have a specific task that I'm doing, like if I'm on the job, or like if it's just some kind of routine thing I'm doing, I'll just do what needs to be done and then I'm moving on.
Hmm.
But when it comes to something like more creative, I'll actually sit there and probably do way more than I should.
Could you elaborate a little bit further? I'm curious.
Um, shit, I can't really think of a good example for that.
Like maybe a recent one, or you just come up with a hypothetical that didn't actually happen, like a hypothetical situation in which something like that might occur. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, so it's like with any job I've ever had, I'm given like usually like a specific list of like this is the order of operations, this is what we expect from it, and that is all I will do to give them.
Hmm.
If it's a job, I will not give anybody extra. It's like you have to pay me for extra and you need to tell me what that is. But if I'm, let's say, sitting down to like draw a picture or paint something,
Hmm.
I will obsess over the perfection of it to the point of it's like it's too much.
Just it becomes unhealthy almost for you.
Well, not that it gets to be unhealthy, but I would risk ruining the actual product because I've just worked it too much.
Gotcha. You just take it a bit too far. Okay.
Yeah. Where it like there's only so much you can do on a piece of paper before you start to ruin that piece of paper.
That's interesting only because I want to know is that I'm wondering because the question is in regards to whether you're a minimalist and you just want to go back to your thoughts. I'm wondering if it's because that activity has more to do with your thoughts than the aforementioned one.
Well, I would say I would get into more of a flow state and it just keeps going.
Hmm.
Whereas if it's a job, I'm not ever going to get in a flow state because I'm paying attention to what's going on.
Okay. Is your immediate environment somewhat neglected?
Um, it gets into states like that, but then it'll get to be too much and I just have to like take a day and fix everything.
You're not the first to mention that one. That's kind of what I do too, which is interesting. It's like things get a little disorganized and messy.
Yeah,
When do
it's
you
like I have
decide?
a
Like when? What makes you decide it's time to clean up?
um well it's like lately I've developed a bad habit where my usual like workspace
Hmm.
tends to be further away from everything else like in my living area.
Hmm.
And so I'll do things like I'll bring over like water bottles or like a bottle of Coke. And when it gets to the point that I'm starting to put them on the floor because there's no more room on my desk,
Hmm.
that's time to pick them all up.
So just once it gets impractical.
Yeah, it's like it becomes an inconvenience to just anything I'm gonna do.
All right, that's reasonable. I mean, I think I could relate to that. Uh, do you oscillate between meaning and despair, or do you feel consistently empty?
Well, you'd have to start to try to define what it means to be empty.
Okay. I think what the question is trying to ask is if do you ever have a state in which you feel like oh your life or your actions or your things have meaning, and then you'll switch over to like a state in which you fall into despair because you think it has none and you can't function and so on and so forth, or are you kind of more consistently feeling pretty borderline empty, like pretty borderline void about everything?
um, it's like I always kind of have like a physical manifestation of just like physically feeling empty inside, like I'm just a shell kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I don't really like attribute that to like any kind of motivation or life experience. It's just that's just how it feels.
It just feels empty. It doesn't actually. You're
Yeah.
saying that it feels like almost like a physical emptiness, or if one to were to conceptualize the idea of the soul, it just feels empty and gray inside.
For me, it's more of like imagine like if you took like a porcelain doll and then chucked it into the ocean to the point where it gets crushed. It's like I feel like I'm at that point where it feels like the outside is going to start to crush me because there's nothing in to reinforce it.
So hollowness,
Yeah.
like a creature with hollow bones, essentially. You're a duck. You're a duck. Oh, that's interesting. Um, would you say that affects your ability to motivate yourself? Because you said it was kind of disconnected. So,
Um, no. When it comes to actually like attributing like meaning or having drive, I feel that that is something that an individual can control. It's you're the one that's going to give meaning to what you're doing.
so how do you have meaning and drive yet feel like you're always going to be crushed by your surroundings?
Well, because I'm the one that attributes any meaning I have to my existence. Like that's up to me to do.
Would that also mean that you have any control over? So, are you talking about when when you describe being crushed by external forces? Are you mean something outside of your control?
Yeah.
Okay, outside of your individual mental control. Okay, it's just an interesting thought because I often wonder how much of that is actually the case and how much of that are perceptions that we have about our external world and and the crushing that is happening is actually coming through internally. But that's neither here nor there. It's just more just a thought, stray thought in my head. Um, do you struggle to hold important information in your mind at the same time? Do you feel impulsive or dysregulated, making frequent mistakes or forgetting that you're supposed to be what you're supposed to be doing?
I don't have trouble holding important information as long as I know that whatever situation I'm in, that's the required information. It's like there's too much that I've like known or read about to have it all in my head ready to go.
Mm.
But if there's a situation where I know, like, okay, I'm gonna go in, talk to these people about this subject, I can load up on that information and have it ready. Like that's no problem. It's
Yeah,
just if I start to get onto like a tangent about something, like I'll forget small like little details or names or something.
yeah. I was about to ask, what sort of information is more difficult to keep in your mind than others?
A lot of it is names.
Names. What about
Yeah, especially
faces, or
no, I'm great with faces. It's just putting a name to the face, especially if I haven't had a lot of interaction
Mhm.
where their name is used.
So it requires a certain amount of use of data for you to remember it more easily.
Yeah, like I've been in work environments where there's a fair number of people, but I don't really interact with some of them because they're not part of like my team. And I'll see them every day, and it's like you'd be like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Hmm.
Like you'll see them in the break room just talking about dumb stuff, but I won't know their name.
I'm curious.
Or it's like I can't remember, like, is their name Jason or is it Greg?
Yeah.
I know one of these guys is Greg.
Is it I can't remember, or is it does it matter?
I think it could be like I've heard their name like maybe twice, and it's like, and it's just I don't deal with this person outside of these small interactions, so it's I
do you,
just can't remember it.
do you care about people's names?
Um,
Do you think names hold something important in them?
oh, like some kind of like intrinsic meaning behind their character.
No, no, but just in general, like, do you think it's important to remember people's names? Like, outside of do you think knowing someone's name is something important to do for someone on a like social level?
Um, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Like if there was going to be somebody where it's like I'm coming to like if I'm dealing with them on a consistent basis and if I'm not remembering their name, that can be a problem in the relationship, you know?
Is it a problem for you? Or is it a problem for them?
It could be with both.
So, would you say you care if people remember your name?
Um, well, like in that same interaction where I'm not remembering somebody else's name because I don't interact with them, if they couldn't remember mine, I'd be like, oh, yeah, it's fine. I do the same thing. But if it's somebody that I see like every day, it's like if I have a weekly meeting with this person
Hmm.
and they don't remember my name, I can't trust them.
Trust
Where
them.
it's
Trust them to what? For competency, or trust them like treachery?
just no, it well, not that they'd have it out for me, but if it comes down to like, okay, something's going on, let's like, how do I explain that? It's like I wouldn't trust them to have my back if there's a problem. Or if there's an opportunity, I don't trust them that they would ever think of me because they don't know my name.
Okay. All right.
So it's kind of like I would see that like relationship and interaction with them is slightly devalued to what it could be.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for that. Um, do you make snap judgments based on insufficient information?
Um, I will, but that generally comes down to if I'm getting frustrated.
So, what commonly frustrates you? What do you mean? Like, what would make you make a snap
Um,
judgment?
like if there's like any kind of like what would you call it? Like a group effort, and if people are just zoned out and they don't care about it, what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like we're supposed to be getting input from everybody and half the people aren't doing it, I will make a snap judgment and say, okay, this is what's going to happen.
Got it.
But like if they don't like it, too bad. They should have had input.
Got it. Got it. Um, are the people around you competent or incompetent? How do you perceive them? People in general around you.
Well, for a while now, that's just been my family. So yes,
So
they're competent.
they're competent. So you would consider your
Yeah,
family members to be competent people.
yeah.
Do you consider yourself competent or incompetent?
Um, Depends what I'm doing.
Okay. So what things would you say you're incompetent at?
Um,
You know, besides obviously skill sets you've never practiced, or like, I mean, I'm sure you're not an
yeah.
amazing archer, you know, but I'm talking about like common skills, like common things that maybe you would consider yourself to be incompetent in.
Uh, it's you mean like stuff that I just don't like doing, kind of thing.
No, no, not like doing is different than
Well,
not
not as a preference,
good
but
at
I
it.
don't like doing it because I'm not good at doing it. That
Well, I
would be
mean,
stuff
yeah, sure.
like I hate making phone calls, especially to places or with people that I have never met before.
Hmm.
It's like it, what would I say? Like a couple years ago when I was out of work, it would be a nightmare just filling out job applications. Like I just hated it.
Filling them out, just the applications.
Yeah, just filling it out.
What,
I
what
just would
reason is
hate
there?
doing it. A lot of it is like they always ask like, okay, what's your background? Like what or like any of like the interview questions.
Hmm.
Like what do you think you're the best at? What do you think is something you'd struggle with? All that thing. And it's kind of feels like I'm being forced to self-reflect on things that I don't like thinking about.
Why don't you like thinking about those things?
Um,
I mean, you don't have to
well,
describe
I'm
it, like in
well,
detail. I'm just curious, like what about things like that make you go, oh, I don't like to think about those things.
well, no, I'm gonna go back and say that I don't like thinking about it is more of I don't like expressing it to
Hmm.
people, especially if I'm not familiar with them.
Makes you uncomfortable. Okay, for a
Yeah,
variety of reasons, which are
yeah,
reasonable considering the whole schizoid
yeah. Or like
diagnosis.
one of the big things that I don't like doing when it comes to that regards is just going through my past work history
Hmm.
where it's like having to tell them like, okay, I was at this place for this long, this is what I was doing.
Hmm.
I don't want to answer why I don't do that anymore, or why is there such a variety of things I've done before, or is there a 6 month gap here? It's like I don't like going over that stuff.
Okay. How does being instructed make you feel? Is learning from others relaxing or stressful?
It depends on if it's something I have to do or if I want to do. If I have to do it, I'll be, what would you say, not strict to it, but it's more like I'll be more criticizing of whoever the person is.
Wait, so if it's something that needs to be done, you don't like being instructed?
Well, like if I'm going in for training,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing, I generally view that stuff as being targeted towards people that just can't figure it out for themselves, which I think I can figure most things out for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm going in, like if it's something that I've gone towards myself, I would be more than happy to have somebody teach me something.
Okay, so just for an example, if it's a training session for a new job, you rather just them show you where the things are at so you can figure it out.
Yeah.
But if it's like say a hobby you're interested in or you like, and then you show up and there's people there that also know that hobby but are more well versed in it, you're more than happy to learn from them.
Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, so do you primarily experience other people as like in group, friends, family, allies, objects like obstacles, tools, or out group like rivals, enemies, villains, predators? How do you usually interact? Like, how do you feel about most people? Not that you interact with, or when you
Um,
experience people, just in general. Not interact, not specifically people you interact with commonly, but just people. Where do you stand on people essentially? Out group, in group, or objects?
oh shit, where would NPC fit into that?
Objects.
Really?
I mean, because you're seeing them as like just machines. Like you're not seeing them as
Um,
friends. Well, if you're not seeing them as friends, allies, or family, and you're not seeing them as rivals, enemies, villains, or predators, you're just seeing them as like just people that you're just very neutral about. This just it's just people. I mean, I don't know if that would fall under objects
like a
or
lot of that just depends on the environment. Where it's like if it's an environment I'm familiar with, I'm there on a regular basis,
mhm.
it would be in group. If I'm going to a place where I view just that area as being negative, that would definitely be out group.
But
But if
but
it's
more
just like
commonly, like when you come across strangers, how do you? What's your go to? Neutral or
yeah, neutral. Like if I don't have to interact with them, I won't.
okay? Is empathizing easier with individuals, fictional characters, groups of people, or eternally re-emerging psychological types? Oh, it's because Burberry wrote that question. I don't know why they said eternally re-emerging psychological types. I think it's in reference to like a collection of traits that are consistent and like throughout, like archetypes essentially.
Oh,
So yeah. So
when
what
it
is it?
when it comes
Individual?
to
Go ahead.
when it comes to empathy, it would definitely be towards an individual.
Okay. How would you describe that? What kind of empathy?
Well, there's different kinds of empathy. Like,
I
what
mean,
what do
there's
you
a
mean different types?
well because there's okay, here, let me describe it. When you see someone not feeling well, right? Like it's
Yeah.
something bad's happening to them, whatever it is. When it's something that you think it's bad, do you feel an emotional hurt from seeing their hurt, or do you just see a maybe something ethical or morally incorrect that you would like to see rectified, but you're not really emotionally attached to in that situation? Which one is
Like
it usually?
it's usually I would identify with the individual and whatever is going on with
Hmm.
them.
But do
Like
you feel their feeling when you see them feeling it?
I won't feel their feeling, but I will have a similar feeling. Like if I see somebody that's having an injustice against them,
Hmm.
I'll have the feeling of, hey, that's messed up. Is there something I can help them with this? But I
Hmm.
am not also going to feel like I have an injustice on me. Like I'm not going to take that on, but I can see it Like I can recognize it. I can see
Well,
like
okay. Do seeing
why
others
it's wrong.
angry or crying make you feel like you want to do the same?
Um,
Because that's more like affective empathy. Cognitive empathy
yeah.
is
Well,
in reference
it
to like you see a thing, you have a certain set of rules and principles or things that you believe in. They're breaking those or you disagree with them, and then you want to do something about it based on that. Like, or you could
yeah.
see somebody else and you can understand what it is that they're going through, and you can acknowledge that it's not a good thing, and so that you make a decision based on that.
Um, I I would say it would have to depend on my actual. I would say it's like the environment of it, but it's like, is this happening in front of me? Is this something on TV? Is this something I'm reading about?
So
I'll have a
so
different
that's a
interaction.
okay. So that impacts it, all right?
Yeah.
If it's on TV,
Where
less so than if it's like almost nothing. But if it's in front of you, maybe
yeah.
something.
Where it's like if I saw somebody on the street get hurt,
Hmm.
that's going to impact me a lot more than if I see some news story where somebody got hurt.
Well, yeah,
Because
that's fairly.
yeah,
I would say because that's a distance thing. That's a fairly normal
like
thing.
it I think it depends on if there's something I can actually do about it.
Oh, okay.
Like if it's a situation where I know I can have zero impact on this,
Hmm.
I'm not going to really let it affect me
Hmm.
as much as it potentially could.
Okay. Interesting. And so you would say that you would play emphasis on individuals, and so fictional characters or groups or archetypes. You don't
Well, fictional characters, I don't care about a fictional character. They're not real.
got it. Got it. All right.
It's like recently, uh, me and another friend got a new game that was released where there's a lot of characters that just are really negative towards you.
Hmm.
But it's like, hey, if you keep going through their storyline, like they can change or whatever. My friend would like pick and choose where he's like, I'm gonna side with these people just because he was more for that kind of like social movement interaction kind of thing. Whereas me, I viewed them all as problems, so I killed every single one of them. And so now I've got nobody else to interact with in the game.
But that's your reaction to fictional characters or game characters.
Yeah, it's like if you're a problem for me, I'm getting rid of you.
Okay. Hopefully
But
that's
with
not
real
what you do
people,
IRL.
no. Real people, no. If you're a problem for me in real life, I'll just get away from you.
And
I won't
how do
look
you
to
feel? How do you
eliminate.
feel about like when you're talking to individuals? I'm curious. Do you see like are you talking like a walking, talking, autonomous, separate human being? Are you talking a thing outside of you that's just a collection of behaviors? Like, how do you how would you say you?
Um, I see them as an individual that is experiencing life the same way I do, whether or not they realize that or not.
The same way? What
Well,
do you mean?
it's like everybody wakes up, everybody like you get
Oh, okay.
hungry, like you
I
have to go
understand. Yeah, I
through.
understand that the motivations and the reasonings might
Yeah,
be different, and the perceptions might be different, but the actual experiences are the same, which is happy, sad, hurt, not hurt, so on.
yeah, and it's like I can recognize that. Hey, maybe somebody went through a different like this like a similar situation, but they came out with a different result. Like I can see like okay, like everybody's different, but we're all going through life.
Hmm.
It's like we don't have a choice in living.
Got it.
Whereas whereas like I can have an understanding of like I feel that I'm not just my body. I
Hmm.
can see that there are people in this world that do not see living in that fashion.
When I listen to answers, like I get so fascinated, I get so like involved. Like sometimes I just want to sit here quietly and think about it. Then I have to like remember, oh yeah, I'm doing a recording. All right.
That's what editing's for.
That's true, but I kind of like keeping that in almost. But yeah, they should probably take it out after. We'll see. In any case, do you primarily relate to parts of yourself as cherished friends, cold objects, or hated enemies? So parts of yourself. How do you relate to yourself the most? Like you're
Like,
like
do you mean like aspects of my character or like physical
no,
things?
yeah, no aspects of your character, like your identity.
Um,
If you have like or if you feel like you have a constructed one to begin with, but it just depends like on your whatever. So are you a cherished friend, are you just a cold object, or are you an enemy to yourself or parts of yourself, like most of yourself? How do you experience most of yourself?
hmm, I would come at that from like a what we call that, like a position of just it being a whole, like the actual definition of like holistic, where there can be parts of myself that I can recognize can be problematic, but I'm not going to try to separate that from the parts that aren't problematic. It's all a whole thing.
Are there parts of yourself that you feel are cold objects
Um,
that you
no, because I view a cold object as like something from the outside, and it's I don't have any parts of me that are outside of me.
okay?
Like, well, at least when it comes to who I am.
What about when it comes to what does it feel like a cold object if it's not who you are?
Really, just like objects.
No, I know. I said when it comes to who you are, I was thinking that you meant that there was some other aspect of yourself that you do see as an
Oh,
object.
well, like metaphysically, I don't think that you are just what's in your mind. I do believe that there is more to it than that. It's just you don't have a way to experience it all, at least in your like conscious, like living day.
Are you isolated? If so, how?
Yeah, I'm definitely isolated.
Mhm.
Like I do not go out if
Describe
I don't
the
have
describe the circumstances of your isolation and how isolated you are. It's more like that.
um well, let's see, like 2 years ago my living situation changed due to just all sorts of circumstances.
Hmm.
And since then I am now living in a place where I don't have to go out every day.
Hmm.
And because I now have a choice on whether or not I have to go do anything,
Hmm.
I don't go out and do anything. And it's gotten to the point that my car doesn't start anymore because the battery died. And
Something.
it's just like I don't go out. I don't want to.
Why don't you want to go out?
Um a lot of it is where am I going to go and what am I going to do?
So there
It's like there's I don't see any reason for me to go
is
out.
that because your immediate environment or just in general, no matter where you were.
Um yeah, I'd say it's a lot of it's due to my immediate environment, but also I it's not that I don't like the concept of going out and traveling, but I always have this like underlying fear of I'm going to get stuck somewhere and it's going to suck. So I'm not going to go and willfully get myself in a bad situation.
What does it mean to be stuck?
Um it's like to be just somewhere where like I've got no connection to it. If like if like I've got no access to a way to get to somewhere that I
An
need to.
exit? You don't have an exit
Yeah,
plan of some kind. You're stuck
yeah.
there. Are you uncomfortable with the thought of like say being in a locked room, like and you can't and somebody put you there?
No, I'm fine with that. It's more like the idea of like I'm going down a highway.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been down, so I don't know any of the exits,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm getting low on gas.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, I need to get gas in my car. This is the next exit. If I take this, is this a road to nowhere kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if I do run out of gas, then what?
So the
I'm
the
it's
unknown,
like
and to a certain degree, makes you uncomfortable.
yeah, or at least if it's in relation to me not being able to continue on, or at least get to where I'm supposed to go.
Got it. Do you desire relationships? If not, why?
Um, every now and then I get the impulse to like want more relationships,
Mm-hmm.
but then at the same time, like usually my rumination starts to kick in, and then I'm like, well, here's all the relationships in my past that have failed, so it takes a lot for me to actually want to like really go out and like look for new connections when it in my current state I can keep on existing perfectly fine with the connections I have.
Okay.
So I
Um.
wouldn't say I'm averse to it. It
Mm.
just because of past interactions, it takes a lot more drive to actually have it happen.
Do you feel like there is a seemingly impenetrable communication barrier or difference in values preventing others from relating to you? Or like, are you fundamentally different than people around you that you interact with or you come across, and that's what keeps you from being able to connect with them, and vice versa, perhaps?
I don't think it keeps me from connecting with them, but there are certain mentalities that would prevent the other people from connecting with me, but I would generally attribute that to them not being exposed to people that are not like them. So it like I can see somebody having like a misunderstanding with me
Mm-hmm.
because I can take on a viewpoint that's radically different from what is a possibility for them.
Do you ever feel like your type of thinking or your type of experience or your value system or whatever is different enough to where it becomes difficult for others to relate to you?
Um, it can be, especially when certain topics come up,
Hmm.
but generally I can be more of an agreeable person and kind of fit myself into something that is more congruent
So,
to whatever's going
so
on.
masking.
Yeah, to a point.
Yeah, yeah, because it's generally what how people are referring to when they say that when you shape when you shape certain traits that you have, exaggerate some, downplay others, alter all sorts of things in order to create like some different person or perception of who you are to be able to kind of adapt better to your environment. That's kind of what kind of masking
Yeah,
often refers to. Um,
I
so,
would agree with that. The only thing I would want to emphasize is I don't do that in a like in a deceptive fashion. Like if I have a viewpoint that the people around me would that disagree on,
mhm.
I'm not going to be overt about it, about my point of view, but I'm also not going to just be a yes man.
Oh, okay. I know. I'm not saying masking is yeah is a because it could be a means to a Machiavellian sort of end, like to
Yeah.
get what you want. But would you say why would you say you mask then? Like what is your motivation behind trying to become more congruent with other people in specific situations and stuff like that? What purpose does that
Um
serve to you?
For me, a lot of it would be about self-limiting like my expressions,
Mhm.
or at least not like expressions like facial expression,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Your
but like I
ability
don't
to
have,
express.
yeah, where it's like if somebody comes at me with like their point of view on something and mine's a little bit different, I don't necessarily want to have like a hour long discussion on the intricacies of that.
Mhm.
Where it's most situations, it's easier to say, yeah, sure, just yeah, whatever.
Why make that choice? Do you think that they won't be able to have a conversation that is intricate or complex enough to understand your position, or because you don't want to just have you just don't like talking to anyone about it?
For me, a lot of it is just avoiding any potential misunderstanding.
Is that
It's
common?
it, yeah, it's like I do not like conflict. I'm very conflict averse.
Hmm.
And so if avoiding a conflict is me keeping my mouth shut and shaking my head, all right.
Cool, cool. What can potential friends or partners change about their behavior or expectations of you to help you feel more comfortable pursuing a relationship?
Um,
Like somebody wants to be friends with Eman. Somebody wants to be friends. What kind of things would
looking back on, at least in relation, like in relation to past relationships that didn't work,
hmm
a lot of the failures, or at least a lot of the reasons that they didn't work out, is due to them putting an expectation on me,
hmm
and it just being something that's like, that's not gonna work out for me. And then just them consistently expecting for whatever that to be to
hmm
just kind of click in and work for them. Or I've had some people that saw me as being like a troubled person and they're gonna fix me. There's nothing to fix with me. And it's like, if you think that there's something that they can fix, to me, that's not a problem for me. And so if they're coming in wanting or trying to influence me and change the way I am, I see that as like an attack on me.
Would you say that the only person allowed to change anything about who you are is you?
Yeah, it's all up to me.
And does something that somebody else does around or to you that feels as if they're trying to change something, even if it's not intentional, does it feel intrusive?
Yeah, I would say like it can get to the point where it does get to be intrusive.
Hmm.
Like especially if it's something that's repeated and I've already made myself clear, like, no, don't do this with me. Like, don't do this. And they keep stepping over that boundary, then it turns into a problem for me and I can't have that relationship.
So a relationship can be established a lot more easy with you if, in fact, things are kind of, other factors are weighed in as long as that person isn't attempting to make changes in you of any kind or shape you.
Yeah, it's like, because relationships have give and take, and I would expect somebody to have like some pushback on things, or not to just accept everything as like a black and white like contract kind of thing. But at the same time, if it's a repeated behavior where it's like, this does not work with me, and they keep doing it for whatever their motivation is, it's like I can't be around that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Um, I love these kind of questions because oftentimes, as I hear the answers, I will notice, like, I pay very close attention to the language of the person, right? Uh, the language they use, the words choice, and things like that. And it's really interesting because sometimes even when the person is answers a certain way on another one question, and then when it's a different question, they'll be kind of like like to me it looks like kind of like signs of certain types of thought patterns that kind of like coincide really well with previous answers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting to me. I'm just something that just popped into my head that I wanted to mention. So
Yeah.
that's probably
And
what I enjoy the most about this is seeing these kind of correlations and seeing these connections, like
yeah.
almost contradictions sometimes. Like there's
Well,
contradictions and they're
and at
interesting.
least with me, you're getting like an immediate response from me. Whereas if you gave me these like questions written and I had a week to do it, you would probably get a lot different, at least language wise, you would get a different response from me because I'll sit there and obsess over if I'm using an exact word or not.
Okay. All right, so now we've gotten to the part of this interview where it's more relaxed and fun, and that's the part where we get to talk about. Well, and this is interesting. I'm interested because if there is an aspect of because many times when people talk about schizoids, they refer to things like inner worlds and things of that nature of some kind. But there is a unique aspect about you that makes certain types of things like that, as they're conventionally understood, a little difficult or different. Correct?
Hmm.
And would you mind mentioning what that is?
Well, what it depends what you're talking about.
Starts
So
with an
like the
A.
the aphantasia.
Yeah.
Yes. So with well, to me, like the whole concept of like mental visualization,
Hmm.
to me, like I can understand that people can like I know everybody can have their own inner experience, but to me it's bizarre that some people can close their eyes and actually see something.
Well, I mean, like for example, I was talking to people and like, I mean, at least according to some, and then even myself, like, I almost have like I'm almost capable of a hyper fantasia, right? So, meaning like I don't see clear images in my mind. If I'm in the darkness and I close my eyes, they do become clearer. But I can't imagine, the ground, the walls, everything around me, texture, smell, touch, changing, altering, being in a completely different environment. And I can't visualize it, whether it's in first person or third person and otherwise. Like as I'm speaking to you right now. Um, I don't see it clear like a television or anything like that or a monitor, but I can visualize it and I can kind of see an image of it inside the mind's eye. You're saying that you don't do that.
No.
Okay, so that's what.
It's like I can mentally come up with like I can describe something that I'm just coming up with on the top of my head,
Mhm.
but a lot of that is like it's not like I'm seeing it and then I'm telling you about it. It's I'm creating it in that moment, but I don't have a picture in my head.
The Would you say the same is about when it comes to memories? So you can't remember when you're remembering something. Is it an imagery at all, or is it just like data, like written data
Um,
almost about what occurred and what details and information got stored in your brain?
so so when it comes to memory, like I can see something and have it give me a memory and I can remember like, oh, it's like if there's like if I'm on my way to like the grocery store, I know that I'm visually looking for like, okay, there's gonna be the gas station here. Down the street is gonna be like a Taco Bell, and then I need to make a left.
So when you close your eyes,
It's
you don't picture like the way it looks like on say Google Maps, right? Like you know how you can like scroll
no,
through the streets and you can kind of
no.
imagine the street and where everything is. That's not what you're doing.
So I'm not seeing that, but if there's somewhere I'm going for the first time, I will use the street view and I will go the route so I can have the check mark of like what's the word? Like landmarks. Like I'll be able to know the landmarks, but
Hmm.
I'm not visually going on the journey myself. It's just I've got this list of landmarks and I know about where they should be.
Okay, so essentially, when somebody says the Shell gas station on the corner of blah 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 and blah blah blah, you're not imagining where that is. You're just going, oh, there's a Shell gas station there. Okay, and so when
Yeah,
you drive, you
it's
expect to see a
it's
Shell gas
actually
station at some point.
yeah. Well, it's actually a detriment to tell me what intersection it's at because I'm not going to remember the street name. It's just I know how far I have to go. I see the Shell station. I'm like, okay, that's where I'm at right now. Here's what I'm doing next.
All right, so then that brings me. You got kind of went off on a tangent there, but it's just I find it so fascinating. The other part I want to know is so how does your internal landscape look like? What do you what does Eman fantasize about, daydream about, get caught up in? And how does it look if you're not visualizing it in any real way?
For me, a lot of it is narrative,
Okay.
where
So
it's
what sort of themes do you often?
um. Well, there's all sorts of themes that I go through,
Hmm.
but for me, a lot of it is like so like how there's some people that like me where I have aphantasia, but there's other people that have too much visualization going on.
Yeah, that's me sometimes.
But like there's also people that don't have an inner monologue.
Hmm.
For me, I can have, you know, 3, 4 different monologues in my head that I'm interacting with.
So
And
you're full of monologues, so like scripts essentially.
yeah, and so I can be interacting with people in my head and I'm creating narratives and stories kind of thing. And for me, it's to the point where it's like I've heard your voice multiple times. I can recreate your voice in my head and have an interaction
Hmm.
between me and you that's entirely in my head, but I'm in full control of it.
I mean,
Having
auditory hallucinations. Like, do you hear them in
no,
your Okay, so
no,
it's just a recreation
yeah,
that you're consciously manipulating and making happen.
yeah. And for me, it can be very problematic to where
Yeah.
I have really bad problem with ruminating,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to very negative uh what would you call it? Like negative situations I've had in the past.
Hmm.
I'll get stuck in these loops where I'm going through that situation over and over and over again.
So,
And
how,
sometimes it's just the same thing. Sometimes it's like, what could I have done different? And it's like
it's
I'll get
intrusive at that
stuck in
point,
it.
though. At that point, it's intrusive, right?
Yeah, especially like when I'm trying to go to sleep, and if I happen to be in one of those mental circuits,
Hmm.
I can be awake for 4 hours, and it's just I'm going through that situation again.
When you go through it again, does it just go down as it did, or does it go down differently? And does it, or like a different way it could have gone down?
So I would say that the reason why it's a rumination is because it never comes to a conclusion.
Hmm.
It's like I'll start to go through this interaction in my head. Like if it's an argument,
Hmm.
it'll start out the same way, and I'll try to. And it's like if there's an argument, and after the fact,
Hmm.
I learned some more information. In my rumination, I will use that new information in that argument, even though it's not an actual argument still going on.
So is that why you avoid conflict?
Yeah,
Because
because
this
that
will
conflict
occur.
will show up in my head again.
So that those are like entirely intrusive thoughts and entirely intrusive monologues or recreations of uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
So now, when you mean conflict, does that mean like any kind of conflict? Like say, me and you got into a debate about something and we disagreed with each other. That's fine.
It depends on the ultimate level of
Or is it emotional states?
like it's not really emotional states. It's kind of like how bad did this conflict get?
Well, I mean, let's just say, yeah. Well, that sounds like an emotional state, right? I mean, because like
Yeah.
if two people are arguing about something, and they stay pretty reserved and calm, and they just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and debunking each other and debating and so on and so forth, and it gets a little heated as far as like information wise, then that's fine. But if like people start yelling at each other and
Yeah.
people start
It
yelling and displaying like what would be I guess term like more rational levels of anger, or somebody starts crying, like that kind of stuff.
yeah, it's for me it can definitely get to be like how much energy has gone into this.
Hmm.
It's like, did somebody crank this situation up to 11
Hmm.
kind of thing?
Are you ever the person that cranks it up to 11, or is it always someone else?
Um, there have been times where I was the one that cranked it up, but I was not the instigator.
Okay, well, so someone
And
else
that,
cranked it up first then.
well, that goes back to like my past relationships where
Hmm.
it's like you are not going to be doing this bullshit to me for the 10th time. I'm cranking this up so you can now finally understand I'm not going to tolerate this.
But
And it,
nonetheless, that conversation's going to go on in your head later, over and over and over.
yes, definitely.
Would you say it's
And
worse when you crank it up as well, or is it just it's going to be just as bad if you don't?
um just as bad.
So it makes no difference. So at that point, you might as well go for broke because it's going to happen anyway.
To me, in the initial confrontation,
Hmm.
it really, because usually when I'm the one to go to that point,
Hmm.
usually it's you've gone past my rational being kind of thing.
So just to go a little bit further on the internal fantasies and stuff, like so most of your fantasies, essentially, the way you're describing is they look like scripts being acted out, right, with voices.
Yeah. And
And
like that can go back to like I really love like books and movies. Like I love them.
hmm
And
so
like I spend a lot of my time like even like when I'm working, when I'm playing a game, I'll
hmm
have something on.
like audiobooks and stuff.
Yeah. Or it's like I'll put on a movie I've seen 20 times. I'll put it on again.
Why do you watch it again if you could just reenact it again?
Um
Or is it so you
I
more accurately reenact it later?
For me, I think it goes back to my aphantasia where I don't visualize it, and here is a narrative
Hmm.
that I don't have to make an attempt to visualize it. It's done for me.
Well, what about books? If you're reading a book, it usually requires a person visualizing it. I mean, I'm guessing you can almost hear the voices in your head in the book,
Yeah.
but
And well,
yeah.
it's like when it comes to books, like I can construct the environment and the actions going on,
Hmm.
but I'm not seeing it in my head.
Okay,
It's kind of like,
but that can be just as fun for you.
yeah. To me, I can. It's like, have you ever woken up from a dream
Hmm.
and then 10 minutes later you're like, I can't remember what the hell I was dreaming about.
Hmm.
What was that?
Yeah. Some
To
dreams,
me, the
oddly, some
visualization
dreams
is
have stayed
it's
with me for the rest of my life.
well, for me it's kind of like I've lost that dream. What was it? And it's just kind of like you've got this fuzzy, just like you can't really grasp it anymore.
I had somebody else that I talked to describe, so that's just since your inner landscape is so different, it's so unique because of the aphantasia, so it takes on a different kind of form, like, and so you kind of described to me like what your daydreams sort of feel like or sound like, essentially, or like, which are like essentially scripts almost, and monologues and dialogues that occur, without visualization. Um, I had somebody else tell me that when they would dream because of a similar issue or the same kind of aphantasia, they would dream and wake up and know what happened in the dream, but had no visualization of what happened. Just the data that these are the things that happened in the dream. Do you have only the voices? of what occurred in the dream?
Um, well, I definitely have difficulty
Since
just
you,
remembering if I dreamed at all. But when I do wake up and I can kind of remember a dream, I know it was visual.
mhm.
It's kind of like I'm experiencing it as a memory kind of thing.
But your memories aren't visual, according to.
Yeah.
So you're saying you think that your dreams are visual, like you're watching a movie or something, and then, but when you wake up, you can no longer access that vision.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So it's like it would be the equivalent of you watching a movie and then the TV getting turned off,
Um, yeah, kind of like that.
and then you can't really redo it well. So you can only visualize in in an unconscious state.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. But the last part I want to ask you about is I want to know your
Mhm.
thoughts on the server, my project, and what I'm trying to do. Whether critiques or whatever you want to say about it. Like I want to know what you think about all this stuff.
Um, like I see it as a definite like positive thing for everybody involved. I can see like as long as you keep going with it, it can definitely grow more and more. And even though like I don't have a lot of interaction on the Discord, like I definitely have Discord open all the time. I can definitely see there's a lot of people on here like chatting with each other, having
Even though you're not
a bunch of
interacting yourself
interactions.
much, does seeing that do anything for you?
Um, I wouldn't say it does anything for me, but I also see it as a very positive thing for just people in general.
But you're part of people in general.
Well, everybody's part of people.
I know. So that's just fun. That's just so funny. I love the disconnect.
It
I love the
it's
disconnect. It's
like
so interesting to me. Like you said
it's like
that it's not a
I
like
see
I get it. Sorry, go ahead.
I see it
So
as a
interesting.
good opportunity for anybody that wants to get involved with something.
It's so
It, like
vague. I
like
love it. I love how vague that is. Like,
well, it's like it's there for you when you need it or want it. Whereas before, at least with the group, like a group of
mhm,
schizoids,
mhm.
there was nothing.
No, I know exactly what you mean. It's not like I'm misunderstanding, but I just
Yeah.
love the way a lot of schizoids will, or schizoid adapters and abstractors, will do this thing where like I've done it too, and I've been made fun of for it. Where I'll make a statement like, "Yeah, it's just it's a thing that happens." Like somebody will say like, "Oh, something something something," and I'm like, "Yep, that's a thing that happens."
It's better than nothing.
No, I know, but it's so funny because everything is a thing that happens. It's so
Yeah.
there's so much packed into a statement. Like it's a thing that happens. It's a place that people can go to when they want to do something. Love it. That's the best. All right. So just a quick shill at the end. Anybody that enjoyed this talk, please join me on Patreon. Please support me there. Donate there. $5 tier will get you access to the Hermit Lounge and the Gotcha, so you can submit stuff for me to react during streams. And more recently, I'm going to start doing a once a week kind of like movie thing to watch movies with other garden hermits on like I believe I'm going to be doing it on Sundays. In the like I don't know the exact time yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be Sunday in the middle of the day. Um, and if you there's higher tiers with more stuff, this actual video will be released to people on my Patreon 2 days earlier than anyone else. So if you're interested in getting this stuff early, or other future conversations I have with people like Eleanor Greenberg, or hopefully other types of doctors that I've been trying to get a hold of that have thoughts on the matter. anything like that, anything a little bit bigger than that, like that, you're going to get access to it early. And then beyond that, I offer services too, like on Fiverr. The name is under Schizoid Angst 84. Or if you get the highest tier on the Patreon, you can get time with me directly if you feel that I have advice or ideas or things you want to vent about as someone that has schizoid adaptations that you think I could help you with. I, of course, am not a professional. I only offer personal advice that you are responsible to do with what you will. But I am here to talk to people when they need to talk, and I want to help however I can reasonably help. Thank you, Eman, for joining
Hmm.
me. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and hopefully, I have a few other Zoids lined up for this sort of setup and this sort of thing. And thank you to everyone watching. Please, again, subscribe and hit that stupid bell thing so that you actually get notifications for this stuff. And if you're on the server, by the way, I didn't mention that. If you don't know about the server, it's called the Zoid Void. It's on Discord. If you're schizoid and you want somewhere to talk to other people that have schizoid adaptations and things like that, please join it, check it out, go through it. We have a vetting system. We're pretty good about it. Yeah, that's about it. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Goodbye. Zoid out.